Investor Connect podcast program. This is Hall T. Martin. I'm the host of the show, in which we interview angel investors, venture capital, private equity, family offices, and many other investor groups for startups and growth companies. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for joining us. Well, hello, this is Hall Martin with Investor Connect. Today we're here with Jason Jacobsohn of Propellant Ventures. Jason, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Hall, for having me. It's a pleasure to be on the show.
Great. So what was your background before investing in early stage companies?
So I got my start in the tech boom of the late 90s, got very active in the entrepreneurial and investment community in the Chicagoland area, and found myself in the forefront of some of the programs to support entrepreneurs in the ecosystem. So a lot of the work I did back then, and even leading up to my investment days, is supporting entrepreneurs with helping them raise capital, get them in front of the right resources for growth, supporting them by connecting them to mentors, to advisors, put a lot of events on together as well to bring investors and entrepreneurs together. So really been active in a lot of different touch points in the community. I also had a chance to launch the Founder Institute in Chicago, which is a global program. It's in 200 cities around the world. We help people launch tech companies or take their business to the next level. So we launched Chicago when it was in the first 20 cities. Now it's in 200 cities around the world. We've had about 100 founders finish our program in the Chicago area. So all these different efforts really lended itself well for me to get into the investing side of things. And all along the way, I've always been big into building relationships with entrepreneurs, with investors, with service providers. And so a lot of my relationships allowed me to connect entrepreneurs to investors over all the years. So when I had a chance to get into the venture capital side of the equation, I jumped at the opportunity.
So what excites you these days? What gets you going right now?
There's a lot of innovation and a lot of startups and entrepreneurs everywhere. Everywhere you look, there's someone doing something to tackle a problem in the world. So to me, it's exciting talking to entrepreneurs and learning about what they're trying to accomplish. And the ones that excite me the most are ones that really are going for a big impact on industries and markets, even having a global impact. So there's a lot of different industries that people are tackling right now, but it's very exciting to listen to people's stories.
Well, that's great. So we have quite a few investors and also startups that listen to the show. For those investors out there, what's your advice for them before they write that first check for a startup?
Yeah, I would say that they really should, ideally, if they can, invest alongside someone else that also has industry experience. With Propellant Ventures, we're going to do a lot of co-investing, so we'll look for a good investor that's already come in, but also really just get to understand the team and make sure that you feel comfortable that they are the right team to execute on the plan that they put forth.
On the other side of the table, you see a lot of startups going out to raise funding. What's your one piece of advice you give to them before they start that fundraise campaign?
Well, do your research. Make sure you understand the investors that you are approaching or being introduced to. Also, make sure you understand what your capital needs are and what you're going to use the funds for. You want to be as educated as possible in the process before you raise capital. So you really have to have a good plan together. And sometimes all you have is one opportunity to get in front of an investor. And if you're not prepared, that could lead to not raising money as quickly as you hope, or not from the investors you would like to raise it from.
Well, you've seen the industry over the past several years. How do you see it evolving today? What do you see coming up?
Well, in the venture capital space, I mean, there's a lot of micro funds coming out nowadays. The funding gap is getting wider. A lot of money is being invested on the West Coast and East Coast, and the funds are generally getting larger. So they're investing larger dollar amounts at higher valuations. So the funding gap continues to widen, especially being in the Midwest here, we still have a funding gap. We have a lot of smaller funds, micro funds that are being launched, but I see that more of that is continuing to happen, and even some vertical focused funds, more and more of those are happening as well.
And what do you think we'll see as the next stage of the development of the venture world? We seem to have a lot of IPOs today and companies coming later stage fundings. Where do you think it's going to go to next from a macro perspective?
I still think there's a lot of money out there, and there's just as enough this year as last year that, if not more, that's being invested. So I know there's a talk of a slowdown in the market. I haven't seen that in the venture capital space yet. Not that it won't happen. We're due for a recession at some point, but there's so much money out there that I don't see a slowdown in the activity anytime soon.
Oh, great. So you have a fund you're putting together, and what's your investment thesis for it?
Sure. So we believe that there's fragmented venture capital industry, especially in the underserved regions across country. And we're focusing on the Midwest and the South and Southeast part of the US, where we believe that there's not as much early stage capital. While there still is early stage capital, there could be more available. And we also believe that there's more companies that are more reasonably valued in those markets. So we'd like to take an industry agnostic approach and invest across industries in those several markets. And we'd like to invest in pre-seed, seed, and Series A mostly. We will do some later stage. We also want to be very helpful with the companies and supporting them with their growth, leveraging the network that we've built over the last 20 years to assist them with capital formation, with finding talent, with finding sales or business development opportunities, as well as just expanding the network for these companies. Industries that we do like, really, we look to see if they have a global impact and also a opportunity to really change markets. So a few industries we like are healthcare, enterprise software, advanced manufacturing, and deep science technology.
Great. Are there a couple of startups you can mention that fit that thesis?
So I have a couple examples from a prior fund that I was involved in. One is heal.com. It is bringing the doctor visit back to the house. So it's really changing the dynamic of the patient and doctor relationship and saving about millions of dollars in healthcare costs. So they're in business. They're continuing to grow. And that was an investment we made at my last fund. So that's in the healthcare space. We also invested in a company that was an advanced manufacturing side as well, where they created display technology for cell phones, for tablets, and they are really changing the dynamic in the industry in terms of the glass technology.
Well, that sounds like a pretty good one. So, what are the challenges in the space for the startup today? You see startups across different industries and different regions, but you had to pick a few challenges you think startups in general are facing. What would you call them out as?
I would say that startups should be coachable. They should be open to guidance because there's a lot of money out there, and you don't want to just take money to take money. So I would, look for smart money. So investors that are able to support these entrepreneurs, whether it's general coaching or just opening up their network. So don't just take the first money that comes your way. Be very strategic about it. I also think there's obviously a ton of competition out there for, in the startup space in general. So really focus on how you're differentiated and how you're going to win in the market. You don't have to capture the biggest market share, but how what you're doing is going to really capture market share, and how are you going to be able to execute. So if a early stage company does not have a big team or its first time founder, that's okay. Just find advisors, find board members, find people that you can surround yourself with to add depth to your knowledge and your team in general.
Great. Well, there are a lot of subsectors and applications out there that seem to be emerging that look like good new opportunities. If you had to pick two or three to call out, what would you identify as being up and coming sectors to watch and invest in?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different buzzwords probably people have heard. One area of interest for me and my fund, but also just in general that is continuing to grow, is healthcare. There's so much innovation in healthcare. It's such a large industry. So whether it's digital healthcare, devices, biotech. There's a lot of stuff happening right now in that space. And that, for me, that's exciting. We invested in a lot of those types of companies at my last fund. But then there's also, of course, artificial intelligence or AI, there's blockchain, there's virtual reality, all these types of buzzwords that you hear, but they have potential really to create major impacts in markets and break down some barriers in industries. So those types of technologies are really impacting all types of industries. So these are cross sector technologies that really can impact everything.
They certainly could. So, well, in the last few minutes that we have here, what else should we cover that we haven't?
I think that entrepreneurs really should look for support in a lot of different ways. There are a lot of accelerator programs out there. There's co-working spaces that offer support. I'd say entrepreneurs should just really be open to guidance, because there's a lot more resources out there now than 20 years ago when I got involved in this space. And that's a lot of our mentors in the Founder Institute in Chicago and really across the world want to give back. And that's why they do it, because they did not have that support resource when they were building their companies. So entrepreneurs need to consider those opportunities, because they can expand their network as well. It may not lead to capital initially, but they can expand their network. And it's always good to build your network as an entrepreneur. Well,
great. Well, how best for listeners to get back in touch with you?
Sure. They can find me on my website at propellant.vc, propellant.vc, or LinkedIn. They can find me as well.
Great. We'll put that in the show notes and hope to have you back for a follow-up soon. I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you, Hall. I really appreciate you taking the time to have me on the show.
Great. Investor Connect helps investors interested in startup funding. In this podcast series, experienced investors share their experience and advice. You can learn more at investorconnect.org. Paul T. Martin is the director of Investor Connect, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors for early-stage funding. All opinions expressed by Hall and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Investor Connect. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions.